Right then everyone, this is just going to be a strange video. It just is what it is, and I've got to be straight up with you. This is a video covering the claim that Alex Afrasabi, the ex-creative director of World of Warcraft, unilaterally decided upon the Burning of Teldrassil and a big old bit of Sylvanas' arc, pretty much regardless of what his team thought, in a way where I'm led to believe it was not at all a popular thing. And this happened before the various complaints leveled against him resulted in him being removed from the World of Warcraft development team. Of course, in 2020, he was implicated in the lawsuit and all of that. Now, essentially, it is that he set a lot of this course into motion with Sylvanas and Teldrassil. What this is absolutely not. This is not an attempt to pin all of World of Warcraft's narrative problems on a convenient scapegoat. That would be a load of bullshit, right? Look. Zovaal, as done in Shadowlands, is the worst villain in the franchise's history. I think that's a thoroughly uncontroversial claim. And while a bad setup and sticking to a story that somebody else just rammed through, to a creative director's misguided unilateral decision made under a state of, rampant, sort of quite a strong alcohol problem, that the story was set into motion via that is absolutely not an excuse for the narrative issues of Shadowlands. This is not ass covering. I'll tell you what this is. This is that I think we can all agree that World of Warcraft would be a very different thing if Battle for Azeroth happened without the Burning of Teldrassil. The narrative of the game, the setting of the game, would be different without the Burning. My understanding is that the Burning was very unpopular internally and was rammed through unilaterally by the creative director. So today we are going to cover the thoroughly strange situation here surrounding this franchise-changing event. Additionally, I'm no longer a tertiary person to this. Story's been confirmed to me, directly. Let's just say I woke up to a few emails. So this has been confirmed to me completely independent of anyone mentioned in this video, and I do believe it to be the case. And, the story's out there, right? So I think it's time to have a talk about it. At a basic level, WoW has just went off the bloody rails since Teldrassil, hasn't it? And I think it is valuable that people understand the very fraught development that has led to all of this. Because, it's been a bloody headache for a lot of us, hasn't it? So let's go. This info has been floating around on Twitter for a few days. It actually kicked off like a month and a bit ago, and it just sort of all snowballed. So it's time to dive in. Essentially, everyone, there are claims from multiple public figures regarding the direction of the character of Sylvanas and Alex Afrasabi, who is one of the lead World of Warcraft developers. He was, in fact, the creative director of World of Warcraft. And, of course, you'll know his name because he was quite implicated in the Californian Department of Fair Employment and Housing's lawsuit against Blizzard Entertainment. That is the lawsuit that sparked their ongoing crisis. It's even the lawsuit that started the chain of events that severely depressed their stock price and reportedly eroded Bobby Kotick's weight with his own board to the point where Microsoft could acquire the company. And Sylvanas kind of does have a little role in this, as does the Burning of Teldrassil. Because the world is absurd. I'm going to break down, then, a timeline of events of this story breaking to help you understand what's going on so that you can make up your own opinion. It began when Michelle Morrow, a voice actor of Illyria in Hearthstone, BlizzCon host, and someone who's just in the general sort of WoW Azeroth orbit, tweeted this. Now, referring, of course, this was to the Shattered Legacy cinematic with the soul splits and stuff. She said, regarding Sylvanas, her entire character was basically sacrificed for the worst storyline in Warcraft history. Sidebar. Michelle, I agree. I heard from a trusted source that the Burning of Teldrassil is Afrasabi's fault. So that's that tweet. Now, next, a Twitter user posted about community thoughts towards Sylvanas' punishment or lack thereof in patch 9.2, to which Ian, who you may know as the red shirt guy, a hero in the lore space, someone we all look up to, he responded, doing a great job of summarizing World of Warcraft's history in punishing villains. The final tweet said this: There's also some disturbing sexism elements built into the whole situation in regards that Sylvanas was seemingly intentionally ruined by Afrasabi out of some odd vendetta, as Michelle Morrow has accused him of doing. Now, to be very clear here, Michelle did not say vendetta. Michelle later clarified that that word is over-dramatizing the situation and that it does not represent the many opinions and feelings that she has about Alex. I think that's just a genuine misunderstanding. Obviously, given the nature of Afrasabi's dismissal from Blizzard Entertainment, it is it's quite understandable that Ian would have read into it that way, even though that is not the literal words that Morrow used. Okay. Next then, Taliesin and Evitel responded to Ian, saying, "Morrow isn't the only one to say this. I have multiple unconnected sources at Blizz that have independently confirmed it." So there's that. Now, after this happened, me and Matt talked about the situation as we understood it on our live stream last Friday. Then at 3 a.m. on Sunday, while I was watching Deep Space Nine in the bathtub, I fired off a tweet about basically just how I thought the whole situation was a bit wild. You know those times you feel like you're in the Truman Show, or it's the Matrix, or it's all just a bit weird? That was my vibe, so I sent out that tweet. Now, of course, you will remember that I hated how the War of Thorns unfolded. My initial reaction to that Sylvanas cinematic with the burning was, quote, "Fucking lol, what a boring fisting of a narrative." I stand by that tweet, all these years later. I think it turned out pretty bad too. So I tweeted about how wild this whole Sylvanas situation seemed, and how, in the upcoming Sylvanas novel, it seems to me that Christie Golden basically has to be dodging plot bullets and motivation problems like Neo dodging bullets in The Matrix. I mean, this is a book that should not be needed whatsoever. It's a book that basically seems to be explaining a character whose handling has been utterly baffling and bizarre, some of the worst storytelling I've seen, frankly. Why does that book exist? Surely it's because we finally want to know just what the fuck's going on with Sylvanas. The following day then, mid-Trial 2 Extreme practice, my phone starts beeping, which was very distracting. Maybe got me killed. But Taliesin and Evitel replied, actually, and a number of other people joined, including Scott Johnson, who you might not know if you're only on YouTube, but he had been quite close to a lot of Blizzard people, including Chris Metzen. He ran the instance since, was it 2005, 2006? A long, long, long time. He's actually one of the first podcasters. First podcasters. And that's the longest running WoW podcast. So that's Scott. He definitely would know people. And then Towley, who's, of course, one of the earliest Twitch streamers. And, I think a lot of people thought of Tally as, a big copium huffer back in the sort of, some of the BFA days. But, he's been very real when it came to Shadowlands being, basically a bit shit. So let's break this down. When my phone beeped, it was because Taliesin and Evitel said, and I quote, "The way I heard it," and that's all it is Afrasabi was set on Sylvanas' turn in BFA and was moved off the team, for now obvious reasons, after it was announced, but before it was properly worked out. A "dude, trust me," that he never saw through. They continue, saying, "Like I say, I've heard it from so many people at so many different times now. Otherwise, it's not the kind of thing I'd repeat. It makes sense to me, though." And that's how it is. Generally, I do get the odd spicy leak every now and then, but, you have to have that degree of integrity to, if it's only just one thing, right? You can't really go live with that, can you? Now, later, T&E explain that, quote, "There's no doubt he was going off the rails towards the end. His problems with drink are well documented, brackets, not his fault, but very destructive nonetheless, end brackets, and he was eventually let go quietly after years of allegations." So that's the T&E evidence. Towley then replied to this, saying, quote, "This is correct. 10.0 will be Steve's baby. It is not easy working around a narrative you inherited and had to make work because so much was already put into Notion." Then Scott Johnson replied saying, "Can confirm." Now, just for there, Scott has been quite close to Blizzard people. He's interviewed Chris Metzen multiple times, and not just oh, hey, Blizzard person, let's do a podcast about your new thing. No, it was far more of a real talk going into Chris's, really a lot of personal struggles, personal shit, right? The sort of thing that I think as a podcast can only happen when people are, some degree of friends or, have that connection. And I'd also just say, certainly from the many, many years of, listening to Scott shows, it's a pretty major part of actually what I was doing when I was growing up. He's an honorable guy. I don't think he's going to lie in something like this at all. I'm just giving you a little bit more color on Scott because I know this is YouTube. Not a lot of you will know about the podcasting space for Warcraft. But, you will know the YouTubers and streamers like T&E and Towley. Now, I responded to Scott saying, this explains so much. Players have to take the plot at face value, but knowing this does change how I process it all. To which he replied, quote, in some parallel universe, Chris is still there calling the story shots, and we are all thrilled with where Sylv ended up. Now, look, maybe Scott knows what Chris actually had in mind for that character. Maybe it's just a bit of hope from him, but I think it is a sentiment that, we can probably all get behind. Since then, I poked around, and look, here's the deal. As I said, said at the top, right? The core claim that Alex Afrasabi pushed the Burning of Teldrassil through, and, Sylvanas' role in that, from what I have seen, I do believe that to be true. I do not think that there is lying going on. Now, obviously, whenever a source talks to somebody, because you could say that, me and everyone I've named in this video, we all are in some way members of the press, pundits, whatever word you want to use. So obviously, whenever people leak information, they do so with a perspective. Right? It's only right and honest that I say that. But I do believe that to be the case. All right? I do believe that. I think that the Burning of Teldrassil is one of the most pivotal moments in WoW's history. I think whether you like it or not, we can all agree that it was pretty important. It's the sort of event that cannot be undone. Around that time then, people started to struggle with Sylvanas' motivation, her character. So, some timeline time then. After the cancellation of Project Titan, Alex returned to World of Warcraft as creative director for both Warlords of Draenor, Legion, and Battle for Azeroth. He's actually credited for Battle for Azeroth. Now, the last place we see Alex Afrasabi within the context of being a WoW dev is BlizzCon. And it's the BlizzCon after BFA comes out, so I believe that's BlizzCon 2018. Now, during the Q&A, he infamously said regarding the big cannon in Ashara, we're going to fire that cannon. Obviously, that didn't happen. Which maybe indicates, again, that the story of BFA probably changed after he was no longer in the picture. And then he said, if I were Sylvanas looking at what Garrosh had wrought, I'd probably think Garrosh was an amateur. And I think this twigs us on to the Shadowlands storyline. I think it was based on the pre-BFA book, where it very much seemed like Sylvanas had her sights set on sacking Stormwind or something. So, maybe Afrasabi had some utter Game of Thrones, big, bonkers bullshit planned. From what I understand, by the way, that is something that basically the rest of the team hated. So, look, Shadowlands was shit by that team. I think that Shadowlands is completely shit from a narrative perspective. I suppose it's heartening to know that the Game of Thrones stuff, feeling stuff, being a load of shit, that maybe they also think that. And also, when I think about Towley's tweet about 10.0 being Steve's baby, that comes into my head and it kind of says, right, is this the first expansion where Afrasabi's influence in the game is completely, not factoring in? Basically, this was a drama where Alex Afrasabi, responding to people on the internet not liking Sylvanas, so hey, maybe that was partially me, whoops, he said, I've heard these discussions on the internet about how she's going off the rails, but is she? I've been writing Sylvanas personally since 2006, and this is pretty much the Wrathgate and the Blight and the Forsaken in character. Those were under Sylvanas' orders. What we're seeing now is an escalation of the plan Sylvanas has, clearly, and we are in the middle of that. Now, obviously, this was a very controversial thing at the time. You probably remember the videos, the drama, people were talking. We knew that Sylvanas created the Blight, like that was under her orders, but the assumption at the time was that Putris was attempting the coup, right? You know, Varamathras is involved, all that jazz. Now, Alex made it seem like Sylvanas knew about the coup, kind of ordered the Wrathgate to happen, and then used the fallout of the Wrathgate to basically clean house and solidify her own leadership. Now, the funny thing is that Polygon actually asked Steve Denuser about this and sort of Afrasabi's response, and Steve's answer was, like, less specific and more playful. A funny aside, actually, a while back I talked to an individual who worked at Blizzard during this period of time. I'll say nothing more, but that person told me that basically regarding anything that a World of Warcraft developer says, that I should note that staff may be defending or explaining things that they do not personally agree with or have a hand in. And this is a thing where I can 100% verify that person, you know. Now, I really don't think that that was said to me about this particular instance, but maybe it's something to keep in mind. Anyway, shortly after early BFA, Alex gets removed as creative director on World of Warcraft. He did something for 2 years, who the hell knows, and he was dismissed in 2020. That's basically the story. Look, for what it's worth, I'm told that, yes, Teldrassil was very controversial internally, and that Alex basically kind of rammed it through. And there's some people said to me, like, oh, this is just pinning it in one guy. Well, he was the creative director. I mean, that's just like, you know, looking at a movie and a controversial plot decision being like, oh, the director rammed it through. Oh, you're pinning it in one guy. Well, yeah, it's the director. I mean, sure, I guess Ian could have vetoed this as game director, but I imagine for narrative stuff, it's like, that's Alex's gig, so he gets the say on it. Right? Like, he probably had final authority in all of this and was able to ram it through. Now, if he was moved off WoW, like, just before 8.1 was released, around that time, then, yeah, so much would have been into motion, because at that point in time, would Alex have been working on patch 8.2? No, that would have been concepted ages ago, because by that stage, Shadowlands really has to be in development, because game development takes like 2 years to build a WoW expansion, maybe even a little bit more, right? So they always have to have an advanced team, which is usually going to be the most senior staff working ahead on whatever the new shit is. So Shadowlands basically would have been to some degree concepted, and, you know, probably pre-production was like well underway by that stage. In fact, somebody responded to Towley saying, you know, well, that doesn't excuse Zoval. And then Towley responded by saying that that person didn't know how WoW expansion development works. I mean, obviously, by the time BFA was shipping, the most senior people like Alex would have been working on the following expansion. Because see, before any of that game system shit happens, like, you have a lot of art assets to make. You have a lot of story stuff to do. You have a lot of concepting to do. You know, all that shit, right? Now, that said, look, I've also heard, you know, time again, actually, that Shadowlands had major changes while it was in development. Like, big changes. So perhaps we've also suffered from that as well, which probably explains why Zoval, which is probably some other guy's idea, ended up being such an utterly shit character. So I think that this change then, I mean, whatever this change is, like if I've heard that Shadowlands changed pretty significantly in development, then it's pretty obvious that would have happened before Shadowlands was announced in 2019. Because I think a lot of the core plot stuff and like Zoval and all that was solidified then. So with the removal of Alex then, obviously Steve Denuser would rise to principal narrative designer on World of Warcraft. And obviously, with all that we know now about the state of Blizz, there's a lot more swirling around all of these people as all this shit's going down. Now, at that point, the general thrust of Shadowlands would have been there. Patch 8.2 would have been well in development, and 8.3 certainly would have been in some degree of pre-production, surely. So, let's talk about what this may have meant then. Right, BFA probably just ended up being a total narrative mess because of all this. Shadowlands also, but with Shadowlands, look, gotta be real, the onus is significantly more on, well, the present team. They inherited a rough story. That's very unfortunate. And I think the redemption of Sylvanas, I think that's probably their idea because they probably want to try to save a useful character from that other guy's big blunder. And maybe the next expansion's going to undo Teldrassil and Undercity somehow, I guess. But most of Shadowlands' blunders like, they're not Alex's fault. They were executed pretty poorly. And now that said, obviously, inheriting a totally messed up story is probably not going to lead to somebody doing their best work. And if the direction changed a lot during development, then maybe this is one of those big hellscape game development projects that, sometimes you hear about in a big report from Jason Schreier or something. So it's hard to know where all this went. Look, you could say that Alex thought up a big Thanos-like cosmic mastermind during the production of BFA, and that maybe therefore he made, Teldrassil happen because of that. You could maybe say that he went super hard on a faction war when it was supposed to be an old god expansion, and he thought he could pull it all off, but turned out they couldn't. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, literally, who the hell knows? You could say that the team wanted to do a straight-up faction war. Maybe Alex rammed in a Shara and Azoth and all the death stuff to lead into Shadowlands. Who the hell knows? It's probably a mix of all this bullshit, being real with you. I cannot tell you what happened, I literally do not know, and obviously given the tone of my content, caused in large part by this whole plotline, I'm probably the last person anyone in the narrative team would really want to leak to, eh? Look, what I do know is that this has undoubtedly been the worst period in WoW storytelling. I think it's an existential crisis for the existence of this franchise. And I think the Sylvanas novel, why the hell does it exist if not to do damage repair? Right, to finally give us a first-person account of what the fuck happened throughout this annoying bullshit plot that has sucked. Because, let's be real, books do make money. But they make a bloody insignificant amount of money compared to, say, selling 3D models for $25, selling a level boost, selling a WoW token. Come on. Patch 9.2 involves the big boy ending the cosmos, trying to anyway, amongst other frustratingly flat, alienating bullshit. But it does have really pretty art. Definitely that. Now, Towley, who, I got the impression is pretty close to Blizz people, he did say 10.0 is Danuser's baby. In that case, batter up, right? This is Blizzard's last chance to save their setting. I kind of do worry because, look, Alex hasn't worked in WoW since late 2018, and I'm sure he set a lot of very damaging things into motion that were just too deep in production, so, you couldn't turn the boat around. The best you could do is slightly steer it in a different direction. Look, Sylvanas stuff has sucked, but Shadowlands in many ways failed upon its own merits. Look, if I was to just go, snort a line of pure, refined copium, I could say that the Shadowlands stuff sucked because of this Sylvanas stuff, and because, A, it was forced to dedicate time to a letdown of an Elune B plot in order to set up a future expansion, that B, it lost a major content patch worth of character storytelling because usually, that expansion isn't this short. C, that it was probably hampered by a very high attrition rate on the World of Warcraft development team, and that D, it was almost certainly impacted by a large direction change in development that maybe coincided with its creative director leaving the company? Or, well, not leaving the company, but leaving the team. Now, by the way, like, big mid-development pivots, that's actually shockingly and depressingly common in AAA dev, and it's something that often happens because, well, a whole variety of reasons, but what it generally leads to is games that launch like Anthem or Mass Effect Andromeda, those ones that are just, messy. Battlefield 2042 as well, from what I'm told. Perhaps it's all that, and then COVID happens on top of that, and that just means that Shadowlands just does not come together. Perhaps. Time will tell. I know one thing. I don't think WoW can really take another expansion of this current narrative quality, and broad online sentiment suggests that most probably agree with me. Now, that said, if Alex ramming through this shitty direction and, late 2018 obviously impacting the development of Shadowlands and moving its direction, if all that happened and we have all of these compounding factors that make it a total shit show, look, maybe it could be the case that 10.0, maybe it's not going to be a masterpiece. But honestly, I think we'd all settle for a 7.5 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, have an uncontroversial but, not risky story, one that's just going to be, oh, okay, good, we're back home. Do that, don't mess up the systems, I think they'll win a bunch of people back. I don't know what to make of this. This is what's coming out online. Now I'm telling you about it, so to be honest, I just want to know, what do you think about all of this? So let me know down below, and we'll be back to our regularly scheduled content tomorrow, or maybe the day after. Okay. Ugh, this stuff's also tiresome. Right. In spite of a weird video like this, I hope you have an excellent day, things go well for you. Goodbye.